Put me down, bub. And welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben, and this is my movie review, spoiler-free, for New Mutants. Now's your chance to get down into the comments below. Let me know which is your favorite X-Men film. Are you excited? I don't know how you could be, because your excitement had probably disappeared by now by the amount of time you've had to wait for this film. But do chat to me in the comments below what you thought about this film, if you've seen it, are you going to see it? 5 young mutants, just discovering their abilities while held in a secret facility against their will, fight to escape their past sins and save themselves. This film is directed by Josh Boone. So Josh Boone has directed A Fault in Our Stars, which I really liked, and the upcoming Stand TV series, which I'm excited to check out. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this film, and I'm surprised by the reviews. It's getting quite a lot of hate, and I don't think it deserves it. I'm so glad that people like Chris Stuckman stuck to their guns and, said what's said. I'm going to try and tell you something different from the reviews that are out there, because there's a lot out there, but I'm going to give you my personal opinion and some interesting, tidbits about the film without doing spoilers. I will do a spoiler review because I feel like there's some stuff that we can talk about that some other people haven't really spoken about. Suffice to say, I enjoyed this much more than I expected, and I actually think it's a half decent film. It's not the best X-Men film ever, and it's definitely not the worst. It kind of sits in the middle, if not slightly above the middle. If I compare it to stuff like the Wolverine Origins, it's definitely above those. It's definitely above X-Men The Last Stand. This film feels like it's two films. It feels like it's an actual superhero film, and it also feels like it's a horror trying to be a horror. When there are scary moments, and there are, it feels like it just kind of misses the point where it's actually about to scare you. There are no real jump scares or interesting ways of making jump scares. There are definitely great creature creations that you're going to see in this that you'll be like, that's cool. But for the geek in me, there are things and nods to the other parts of the franchises which I really enjoyed, which I'll talk about in the spoiler review. I also really liked the superhero part of this film. So the latter half of this film, you might expect it to be more horror. So going in with that mindset, that's not really what this film is. It takes all of these New Mutants, which is why it's called New Mutants, who have basically just come into their powers and on their journey in their life story, they find themselves in this hospital for a reason. And so if you take basically X-Men, Xavier's school for mutants, where they need to learn to control their powers, and you put them, a few students, in a hospital version of that, a more demented version of that, and people that are testing them to kind of help them and get through the program so you can be of use to society with your mutant stuff, and people won't hunt you down and kill you. That is the premise. We've seen it done before, so it feels like it fits nicely in the X-Men universe, especially in the original trilogy. I really like the acting as well. I thought they really did their characters, their roles justice. Even the storyline between there's 5 separate characters here, and the background stories sated me enough to be invested in the characters. I was actually invested in the characters when it came to the end. Not massively so, but I cared enough for them so that when there was the big heightened superhero explosions and running and, so much running and jumping and scaring and stabbing, you care. And so the first half of that film is basically setting you up about that, seeing who they are, what their powers are, why they are here in this hospital. And then in that you have some really kind of creepy shots, you have some nice dark scenes. I'm not sure it deserves the 15 here in the UK that it got, apart from some of the gore that you get in there, and there is some, and that's why I think it got it. There isn't sustained threat the whole time. It is developing those characters, so the background stories, the background scenes that you get, or conversations that you get when there's exposition, and there is quite a bit of exposition, you do understand why they are the way they are. And I feel like the exposition is done well, so it's not just all in one blurb, it's in amongst stuff that's happening, and so the flow feels fairly well. I've seen some people, the flow feels fairly well, the flow and the edit seems pretty good. I've seen some people mention that they thought this film was all over the place. I don't see that in this film. It gives you the origins at the beginning. It thrusts you in amongst them. You get to experience what they're experiencing, and then that is the kind of the first half and middle of the film. And then at the end, by the time you know what's going on, you get that kind of superhero film. I also like the score. I think it was pretty good. I think Josh directed this film really well. I'm sad that it took so long for this film to come out, but I am happy that it's out now at the cinema. I do feel like it needed to go to VOD. It's a film that I think would have benefited from, because so many people are still not going to the cinema. I right until the film started, I was the only one in my cinema, and then I had 4 other people, and that's a 150 seater cinema. If you half that because of the spacing, so there should have been at least 75 on a weekend release. So people are not going to the cinema. They don't have faith in it, and so this film, I feel like people are going to say, "Oh, look at the reaction. There's not many people going to the cinema." That's just because people aren't going. That's not a reflection on the film. And the Rotten Tomato scores, which have rated this really low, I am surprised at, because I really enjoyed this. I could mention a number of other superhero films that are way worse than this, that have much higher Rotten Tomato scores. So I don't really put much stock in Rotten Tomato anymore, because I've always found not always, but most of the time, I find like I differ in opinion to what's going on there. Obviously, it's just a collection of scores, and then it averages it out, so it doesn't really give you a feel of what's actually going on here. I was teetering on my score between C plus and B minus, and I think it does definitely sit around there. It's a half decent score. My friend Austin Burke, who you probably heard of, is a great reviewer, and he rates it around the same place. And I feel like for my response, for how much I actually ended up enjoying the film, it is there. There is a weird kind of lag in parts of the film where you kind of want to know more. And after thinking about it, I think it's this. It's just sad that it feels like it's the beginning of a story. It feels like the beginning of the journey. And because this is the last X-Men in that universe, it does connect to it. I'll talk about that in the spoiler review. It does connect to it. And so when it ends, you feel like, I really want to know what happens next. And so I feel like the film was catered towards having something next, which is why there does feel like there's something missing. So had they filmed during the COVID section, they would have probably known they're not going to get another one, and the story might have a bit more of a completion, or been filmed with that idea in mind. It would have felt a little bit different. They might have added a few more scenes. And talking about scenes that have been removed, for the most part, this film was meant to have been reshot, had extensive reshoots, and apparently it didn't. So the film, the cut that you get was the one, so it shouldn't have taken so long to come out. Also, there was going to be an end credit scene that linked the film to the next possibility of what might happen, but the director has removed that, because obviously we're not getting any more, and we're probably going to get an X-Men film in 5 years when Marvel decides what they're going to do with it, and we have hopefully come out of the COVID stuff. So that is, it's got so much history, this film, before it even hit cinemas. Can't believe it's finally been there, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this. I'm fully aware that maybe part of that is that my expectations were low, and that I've been hyped for so long and then never believed that this film was actually coming out. But I think there's really great acting moments. Maisie Williams is one that stands out, but I think each of the actors really it feels like their characters defined. You know who they are. You know what they did. They're not very well fleshed out. There is backstory, but you kind of know what they are. I feel like the next films would have given each character some time to play with who they were becoming. But I really enjoyed their performances, the direction, the way it's shot, the CG when it comes into play. It's all fun. It's a solid film. It's not scary. There was no point where I was like, I was tense, but I wasn't like, this isn't a solid horror. So I do think it could have gone to VOD, even Disney Plus. There's a film on there now. I think one of the Wolverine films is classed as a 16. So this nonsense about Disney not having age restricted stuff on there is nonsense. There is one there right now that I spotted that's a 16. So it could have gone on there, and I think it would have given it a much wider audience. So let me know in the comments below what you thought about this film. Are you going to see it? Thanks so much for watching this review. Do check out my spoiler review if you want to. And most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.